The month of March originally occupied the southeast corner of the hall. But was lost due to a fire that destroyed the wooden spiral staircase. The cycle then continues on the southern wall, with the months of April, May and June. Thus, to prolonged exposure of the wall to the sun, corresponds the representation of the spring months in which the star already appears vigorous. April appears to be one of the most articulate scenes of the cycle. In the painted loggia that ideally opens onto his domains, the prince-bishop wants to give the idea that his territories prosper, thanks to the effects of his good governance. The painter also organizes a fresco for April that satisfies these expectations, with a month characterized by a dazzling springtime, crowded with well-dressed peasants, who in a verdant setting perform their assigned tasks in harmony. All this takes place in partly ploughed and cultivated land, alternating with wooded and rocky areas. The color green, in all its shades, is the real protagonist. The background, amidst large rocks emerging from the landscape, is dominated by some of its tones, the tender one of the newly sprouting leaves on the trees and bushes, the darker one of the woods, and the lighter one of the meadow grass. The dense fir forest offers refuge to a bear. Perhaps a reference to the mythological nymph Callisto, the favorite of Artemis, who was transformed into a bear by the goddess of the hunt. A wish for the upcoming hunting season that the nobility is preparing for. A pilgrim, dressed entirely in white, complete with hat, staff and purse, pauses in front of a village with thatched roof houses arranged around a small church. The extreme elegance of the figure is perhaps meant to be a tribute to the Christ as a pilgrim, in an evocation of him on the lands of the prince-bishop, defining his protection and fertility. A dog snoozes in the square in front of the church. It symbolizes loyalty to the religious institution. Under such auspices, the campaign can only be fertile and orderly. The fields are well divided and fenced, like the cultivated gardens, by woven willow trellises. The use of the latter not only expresses a tangible protection, but also a spiritual one. Tradition has it that Christ on Golgotha got up by helping himself to a willow branch. This rocky ridge is occupied by a forest. A dog chases a hare over ground, dotted with white field mushrooms. The sketch is not placed by chance. In fact, an old popular proverb says, "He who goes hunting without dogs, returns home without hares." A saying that explains how crucial it is in life to always choose the right tools, according to what you intend to do. Two women, in symbolic red and white dresses, indicating purity and passion, are watering a vegetable garden, under the eyes of another peasant leading an ox-drawn cart. The allusion to fertility inherent in the story is confirmed by the other figure, busy carrying a sack to the field for sowing. Here, a man on horseback uses a harrow to break up clods and facilitate sowing. During the Middle Ages, the horse began to flank the ox, if not take its place, in working the fields. Although it does not always have the same shooting capacity as an ox, it proves to be more maneuverable, faster and stronger. A farmer wearing a yellow tunic, symbolic of the change he is making, scatters the seeds contained in the sack slung over his shoulder. In the Alpine valleys, spring varieties of wheat and spelt, or other cereals such as rye and barley, were sown immediately after the last snow had melted and the ground had warmed up. It is necessary for the farmer to sow in a short time, so that the moisture from the melted snow remains in the soil. The sown wheat is a symbol of the wealth that is invested to produce new wealth. As in September, two peasants lead the plough, pulled by a pair of oxen and a pair of horses. Since the 11th century, an innovative type of plough, called heavy plough, had become widespread in northern France. Equipped with an asymmetric plough, share with two wheels in front, it needed to be transported by oxen or sometimes horses. In the scene, the artist brings both species together. Remarkably, the artist focuses on the different types of yoke: the bow yoke, bound to the necks of a pair of oxen, and the horse collar, used to distribute the load around a horse's neck and shoulders. This is not the only innovation that the Prince Bishop highlights. Indeed, the mere possession of a wheeled plough showed the social difference between a poor peasant and a rich one, and consequently between a cruel tyrant and an enlightened lord. The idyllic presence of young aristocrats intent on their amusements could not be missing from this picture. On the edge of the picture, two elegant ladies act as a link between the scenes of the months. They are in fact heading towards the festive procession, depicted in the following month of May. One of the two, with a flap of her dress, is about to cross the thin tortile column that separates each month. Thus, one scene continues into the next without interruption, just as the cyclical succession of seasons and time is uninterrupted.